I tested which AI is best, ChatGPT versus Claude versus Gemini. Now, if you've spent any time trying to figure out which AI assistant is actually the best one to use, you have probably noticed that the answer changes depending on who you ask. Now, ChatGPT fans will tell you it's the obvious choice. Claude users will tell you that the writing quality isn't even close. Gemini advocates will point to the Google integration and call it a no-brainer. Now, the honest answer is that all three are genuinely capable tools, and all three have real weaknesses that their marketing does not advertise. Now, the difference between them matter, but they matter in specific ways depending on what you're actually trying to do. Choosing the wrong one for your use case does not mean you get a bad result every time. It means you're consistently leaving better results on the table. Now, I've spent significant time using all three for real tasks, not benchmark tests, not synthetic evaluations, but the kind of work that people actually use these tools for every day. Writing, research, coding, analysis, summarization, creative work, and general problem solving. I tested each tool on the same tasks and paid attention to where the differences showed up. What I'm going to give you in this video is an honest practical comparison of these three tools and what each one is genuinely good at, where each one fails, and which one you should be using based on your specific needs. No sponsored opinions, no hedging, just what I actually found. Now, before we get into the head-to-head, a few things worth establishing upfront so the comparison is fair and useful. Firstly, all three of these tools have a free tier and paid tiers as well, and the gap between them is significant. Now, I tested the paid versions for all three: ChatGPT Plus running GPT-4o, Claude Pro running Claude Sonnet and Opus, and Gemini Advanced running Gemini Ultra. Now, if you're using free tiers, the performance picture shifts somewhat, but the relative strengths and weaknesses I'll describe largely hold. Secondly, all three tools are updated quite regularly, and specific capabilities change with the model updates. Now, what I'm describing reflects the current state of these tools as of 2026. Now, the patterns I'll describe have been consistent across recent versions, but specific features may have evolved since this was recorded. Third, this is a comparison for general users and business users, not for developers evaluating APIs or researchers technical running benchmarks. The criteria I used are practical, writing quality, reasoning accuracy, research capability, and ease of use. So with that said, let's get into it. Now, first off, we have ChatGPT, which is made by OpenAI, the company that effectively launched the modern AI assistant era when it released original GPT in late 2022. Now, the current flagship model is GPT-4o, which is a multi-model model, meaning it handles text, images, audio, and the video inputs. ChatGPT has the largest user base of the three tools and the most mature ecosystem of integrations, plugins, and third-party tools. The free tier is going to run on the GPT-4o Mini. Alright, the paid plus plan at $20 per month gives you access to the full GPT-4o model, image generation via DALL-E 3, and voice mods. Now, Claude, on the other hand, is made by Anthropic, an AI safety company founded in 2021 by former OpenAI researchers. The current model lineup includes Claude Haiku for fast, lightweight tasks. Then, moving on, you have Claude Sonnet as the mid-space working, and then Claude Opus as the most capable model for complex reasoning and long-form work. Now, Claude has developed a strong reputation for long-form work, and its daily usage limits are incredible. Of course, it does have plans and pricings, and the difference between them is quite vast, but the productivity on the free plan as well as on the pro plan is pretty incredible. Moving on to Gemini, which is made by Google DeepMind, and it's Google's answer to the AI assistant category. The current flagship is Gemini Ultra and accessible through the Gemini Advanced subscription, which is bundled with Google One's AI Premium at $90.99 a month. So, if you live inside Google's productivity suite, Gemini has a structural advantage over the two that's independent of raw model capability. Now, when it came to just basic writing quality on all three of these, I will say it's the case that most people reach for first with an AI assistant. And with general writing quality, I will say that ChatGPT is pretty good. Gemini is also pretty good. But Claude is the strongest writer of the three, and it's not particularly close for most writing tasks. The output tends to be more nuanced, and you could literally go ahead and have different types of problem solved for yourself as you go on. Okay, and it gives you the right amount of text, and even tell it to talk to you in a specific tone, and it will do so. So for professional writing long form content, Claude is the tool to use. GPT produces good writing but tends towards a more recognizable AI style, slightly more formal, occasional, and repetitive in its sentence structure. Gemini is the weakest of the three on pure writing quality in the most head to head comparisons. The output is competent but tends to be much more generic and much more straightforward. Okay. And of course, that is an issue when it comes to writing. So the winner for writing is definitely Claude, with ChatGPT as a strong second for structured and technical writing. Then moving to reasoning tasks, which is working through a complex problem, analyzing a document, evaluating arguments, and making comparisons. Now, GPT with the 4.0 is the strongest overall reasoner of the three for mathematical problems, logical puzzles, and even structured analytical tasks. It tends to show its work clearly and break problems into steps, as you can clearly see. For data analysis, financial modeling, or even coding logic, and anything that requires following a chain of reasoning to a specific correct answer, GPT 4.0 has a consistent edge. Now, Claude is the strongest for analytical tasks that involve nuance, ambiguity, or judgment rather than pure logic. So give it a complex business scenario or a complex, mathematical task. And what happens in that case is it will go ahead and make surface assumptions, but it does have a false balance in it. Now, Gemini, on the other hand, performs competently on reasoning tasks, but tends to lag behind the other two on complex multi step problems where it has a meaningful advantage. So, winner for reasoning would be ChatGPT for precise logical tasks and Claude for nuanced analytical judgment. Then, moving on to research and current info. In that case, Gemini is the strongest research integration of the three because of its native connection to Google Search. Now, when Gemini searches the web, it's pulling from the same index that powers the world's most used search engine, and the results are current and well sourced. Then, moving on, ChatGPT with browsing enabled performs well on research tasks, but the browsing feature is inconsistent and sometimes it searches when it should not. Claude has a web search capability on the paid plan, but research is not its primary strength. So, winner for research, well, definitely Gemini. Now, finally, we have coding assistance. Coding is a major use for AI, and all three tools are capable. Now, GPT has historically been the strongest coding assistant of the three, and the reputation is well earned. Claude has closed the gap significantly on coding in recent versions, of course, on Claude Code as well. But of course, that is a plan on the Pro feature. So for the free plan, I will say that it doesn't really take a big chunk out of it unless you are using Claude Code. And then Gemini, which has improved on coding but still trails the other two on complex programming. So when it comes to winner for coding, ChatGPT is best for general coding tasks and Claude for large code base analysis and code review. Now, here's the clearest recommendation I can give based on everything I tested. If writing quality is your primary use case, content creation, professional communication, and long form documents, for sure use Claude. If you need strong reasoning, coding assistance, or access to the broad set of integration and extensions, use ChatGPT. And if you're a Google Workspace user and want AI that works native across that ecosystem, use Gemini. So try all three on the same tasks that you actually need to do, and that single test will tell you more than any comparison video can. So thank you for watching this video till the end, and I'll see all of you next time. Have a great day. Goodbye.